It's Saturday Stockman Stampede, an open tag started by Terry's Knives and Man Stuff. Today we're going to be taking a look at a cold steel large Stockman. This would be equivalent to a case 75 pattern Stockman. One thing you'll see different about this, right off the bat, it's all screwed together construction. So this one can be adjusted, it can be modified. If you take a look at the springs, you don't see any gapping. You can feel very minor stepping. There is just a tiny bit of a gap right here. And I think you can see that as I push on that very corner, that changes. But these covers are screwed on with 3 screws, so they're not quite perfect. If you wanted it perfect, you could probably take that off, put a little bit of glue on the back, clamp it, and put it back together. But that is good enough for me. Now this has your typical blades. You have your clip point blade. This says Ranch Boss 3. And on the other side, see cold steel 8CR14 MOV, and the knife is manufactured in China. But even still, they did a pretty good job of it. I do like this knife a lot. These do have sort of half stops. I'm almost going to call it a half resting point. Good snap on the open, and there's a lot of pressure there. That knife isn't going to close on you accidentally. But it's not really, doesn't click into any half stop, it just rests there. And then good snap on the close. Same thing when you open it, it just rests in that half position. Then snaps open. Let's take a look at the other blades. You've got your typical spay blade. This one has a really nice shape. It's almost more like a reverse tanto, and it has a little bit of a point, which I like. This is a very useful blade. Same thing. It just goes into more of, I'm going to call it, like I said, a half rest position, not really a half stop. Snaps closed good. Same thing on the open. Again, good authority, and you need a good amount of force to push that blade closed. So it's a very safe knife to use. Same thing with the sheep's foot, opens up into that kind of half rest position, snaps open nicely. They do give you choils, but that could be easily modified on your own. Now when we close it, same thing, just kind of a resting position, and then good snap. And it takes quite a bit of pressure to close this. So that's nice. All the blades have a good strong spring. They have good action. It's not a knife that you would buy if you want the ultimate and walk and talk, but it's very functional. The blades lock open pretty sturdily. So this is a great user. Now one thing that is very different about this knife than other 2-spring knives, if you look at most of your Stockmans with the 2 springs, they bend the 2 small blades in order to make them fit in one space. What this knife does is, if you look, one spring is quite a bit wider than the other. This is a standard width spring. They make the spring for your 2 blades wider. Then the stock at the base of the blade is wide, and they grind it in on one side to make the blade the right thickness. Same thing on the other, it's ground on the other side. So that makes room for the 2 blades without having to go crazy bending them. So if we look at the blade in relation to the knife handle, you'll see it's straight. You pick up a normal Stockman and you'll see those blades are bent pretty far over. Like here's another Stockman, and you can see this blade is only bent a little bit because on this Boker, this is a Boker 4-inch Stockman, they do give you a little bit of room on that grind there. But typically, they're bent over quite a bit. You pick up a case 75 pattern and look at it, you can see just a little bit of bend in this one to create extra space. Or you have on the case 47 pattern, which has 3 springs. All the blades will be straight on this knife because it has 3 separate spaces. It has a space for each blade. But this is a way to get it in a 2-spring knife, which allows you to have a spring that's more stout. If you look at this 3-spring knife, you can see each spring is pretty thin. Let's compare, because these are same size knives. So let's compare the springs. You can see how much thinner the springs are on the case than they are on this Boker. So there are pluses and minuses of doing it this way. With 3 thinner springs, each spring, there's less steel, so it has the potential of being a little bit soft. Where with the thicker springs, they can be a little bit more stout and have more tension and hold your blades open better. So those are just a couple little observations. And I really like how they did this. So, like as I showed you, the blade is nice and straight with the handle. Any little appearance of not being straight is distortion from the camera lens, but I'm looking right down the knife and that is perfectly straight. And then the spade blade. You also can see that that blade is nice and straight with the knife. So that's an excellent way of doing it, is going with the thicker spring and the thick stock at the base and then grinding it out on opposite sides to thin the blade down to the proper thickness so that you have clearance for both blades in that single space. So all in all, this knife is well put together. 8CR14 MOV is going to be a little bit better than Case's True Sharp. I'd have to compare this to Buck's 420 HC. I would expect them to be pretty similar to each other. So if you're looking for a Stockman, these are not expensive. So this cold steel Stockman is on Amazon for $38.50. So that's a pretty good price for a knife that's as nice as this. I really like this a lot. It's built well, it's serviceable with screw together construction. The blades are all straight. Not only are they straight, they're centered. It's done well. When you open the knife, all of the blades are, if I get it where there's no camera distortion, all the blades are perfectly straight with the handle. Like you can see there, that's probably the best shot I can give you. But trust me on that, they're all perfectly straight with the handle. You have an upgraded steel that's better than anything Case uses. It's robust, good solid springs, decent heft to it, and even these imitation saw cut bone, they're probably Delrin or some similar type of a plastic. It's done well. You have space for engraving if you wish. All in all, this is an excellent value. For 38 bucks, for half the price that you'd pay for a Case Stockman, better quality, better fit and finish, all the blades run true, the springs are good. It's just a solid choice.